Okay, well, let's continue. I'm very glad that I can announce to you the lecture of Anneke Smelik, which is entitled A Close Shave, the Taboo on Body Hair in Contemporary Culture. Anneke Smelik is a professor of visual cultures at the Radboud University in Nijmegen. And her latest book in Dutch is called Ik, Cyborg, de mens-machine in populaire cultuur. I think it appeared a couple of weeks ago. Yeah? So in English that's Me, Cyborg, Human Machine in Popular Culture. And she also edited The Scientific Imaginary in Visual Culture. And she co-edited Technologies in Memory in the Arts. And also Bits of Life, Feminism at the Intersections of Media, Bioscience and Technology. She's a project leader of the research project Dutch Fashion Identity in a Globalized World. And well, I'm really interested in her contribution because her research interests include the performance of authenticity in fashion, digital art and culture, and multimedia literacy. So that's very much part of the subjects of today. And I would like to say one more thing, that Anneke was involved in a Studium Generale program of the Radboud University, I think, in 2010. And yeah, that was entitled Extreme Makeover, huh? But it was more focused on design and fashion and so on. But, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Extreme Makeover is, it wasn't a Studium Generale, it was, it's a lecture series that we do every year because it's such a huge success. And we've been running it now for 8 years, and every year there are more students. I think we're now about 300 students, so it's amazing. Anyway, so body hair. I'm the last lecture today, right? Or not really? Oh, okay. Okay, because it's a bit of a strange subject, obviously. So, I did this book on cyborgs, I, Cyborg, and this, what I'm presenting now, is the last chapter. Because cyborgs don't have hair. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's actually how I got onto cyborgs. And I was fascinated by their shiny bodies, and then I looked at popular culture and I thought, God, everybody has a shiny, hairless body. What's going on here? It's been published many times, so you can download it from my website. Anyway, so what is this myth that our bodies should be hairless from the forehead down? I mean, I'm really talking about body hair and not about hair on the head. And I will show today, I will see a little bit what you can take. If you get very restless, I will keep it light. And if I hear that you can actually take it, I will go a little bit more theoretical. Okay, so the idea that we shave, pluck, tweeze, wax, electrolysis, you know, we do a lot of things to get our body hairless. And that's a very interesting question. You know, why are we doing that? It's not so obvious. My point is several, and my first point is that this is not only a new body ideal, beauty ideal for women, but also for men. Because we may have used a settle for that kind of body, but we don't anymore. We really want them like this now, don't we? So, men and women have to be hairless. That is the idea. And I say, what I will argue is that the hairless body points to the fact that the body hair has become a taboo and the abject. And I will go into that. Why? But I heard that you've already talked about biopolitics by Foucault, and that would be part of the context, theoretical context in which I place this. I understand the hairless body as an effect of discourses, all kinds of discourses, I will discuss them, and cultural practices in, okay, in the sense that of technology. So I take the hairless body as a technology that we perform upon ourselves, and it is part of the contemporary belief that the human body can and should be controlled, altered, and perfected. So this is about the makeability of the body, as we say in Dutch, actually. One of the points is that that the makeability of the body, people always talk about cosmetic surgery, and that by now is so banal that I thought it's much more interesting to look at a hairless body. But obviously, cosmetic surgery is just one step further. So, I will say that what happens is that we move socially away from nature. That's really the argument of my book, I, Cyborg, that we want to be cyborgs. They're sexy, they're cool, we want to identify with machines because we want to identify with a complete control over the body. Now, actually, to follow a little bit from what Boris Groys said this morning, the end of my book, I say that this is ultimately a fear of the mortality of our bodies. We are really afraid of decay, of old age. I mean, including myself. This nice gentleman just took a picture of me and he said, nice picture, so I said, show it. And I looked, it was a nice picture, but my immediate reaction is, oh my God, I am getting old. Right? So this whole idea that old age, decay, and eventually we have to die. You know, I sometimes feel that this is, okay, we all understand that body hair is abject, right? We don't like, if you see body hair, it's not nice, it's ugly, it's animal-like, it's really gross. That we get. Now, wrinkles is the next thing, you know? Wrinkles will be abject and, you know, we can't take them anymore. And I sometimes feel that we almost like angry with God that we're getting old and my God, that I should have to die, you know, this idea. So that is the point of my book. I will not go into it probably very much today, that we move away from nature in such a way that we really embrace culture, embrace technology, and that we really, are scared of death in the end. And there's also the influence of fashion and media. I talk a bit less about that probably today. So the idea is then that there is a technology of the body. The body can be controlled, can be altered, can be perfected. And body hair is a kind of biological and social marker that polices several boundaries. There is the boundary between the human and the animal, the boundary between the adult and the child, the boundary between male and female, between man and machine, and also between health and illness, but that's the only one that I will not discuss. So, my argument is that the absence of body hair, the fact that we take it away and that we all do it, draws very sharply the boundary between human and animal. We do not want to be like the ape where we come from, but we want to become like the machine. Where, on the contrary, it blurs boundaries between male and female, between adult and child, and between man and machine. Yeah? And in that sense, I understand the hairless body of a series of becomings. I don't know whether you're familiar with that term. It comes from Deleuze and Guattari. And at the end, that is what I will go into, because I actually think Foucault is already, that's 20th century. We've had that. We're somewhere else already. You know, I really think we're somewhere else. If Boris Groys said, you know, finance, capitalism is now in a flow, so is our culture. So I think the notion of becoming is more interesting to work with than biopolitics. And I will end it with that. So we're becoming woman of the body because we're all becoming hairless. We're becoming child, apparently we're becoming a machine. So there are several discourses. Right? You know what that means now, I understand. Several discourses that I will discuss. Sports, fitness, bodybuilding, the hang together, science fiction, obviously the figure of the cyborg, beauty ideals. I may skip that part just for reasons of time and the empirical data. You just have to believe me that everybody shaves their body or takes their hair away. 98% of younger women under 50, and men is now 46%, but that's probably increasing very fast. I will deal a little bit with the new man. You will love the pictures. And a little bit, maybe I may not go into it so much, but I think pornography is also one of the discourses that influences this hairless body. Okay, so sports. Men actually started to shave their bodies because they didn't used to, right? This is a recent phenomenon. They used to shave their body in sports where there was resistance to either water or air. And now the funny thing is, of course, now, I mean, body hair, right? How much faster will it make you go to not have body hair? I mean, you know, and I don't know whether you know the work of Paul Virilio, but he wrote a wonderful book, well, he wrote lots of books on technology, and he says, but just this idea, we are so in love with speed, and just the fact that actually we now have technology that can measure the difference whether there is a hair on your body or not. I mean, you know, in terms of speed. So again, this has to do with technology. Probably a little bit clear is also here the hairless body of bodybuilders. There is a wonderful, this is a little sidestep, but there's a wonderful article that I read about 20 years ago, I think, that it was by Ernst van Alphen that bodybuilders, I mean, obviously this is a not natural, non-natural body, right? Madonna starts looking a bit like that. Did you notice? No, she really does. Anyway, and so it's a non-natural body, and oh yeah, that wonderful article. So what Ernst van Alphen wrote is that he said, well, you know, look at this body. Everywhere that you see a phallus, there are phalluses distributed all over the body, except for the real thing. That disappears. Now look at it. Isn't that interesting? You know, you will never look at bodybuilders with the same eyes again, right? This is, well, that is what the technology of the body does. It over-sexualizes and takes the sex away. It's very interesting. What was the point? Hairlessness. Yeah, that you have to be hairless. You have to be hairless in order to see the muscles. I mean, there's no point building all those muscles and then have hairs on them. That would be, you know, you take the whole effect away. Now this, of course, bodybuilders are slightly out of, you know, out of the ordinary. But I do think that fit bodies are very much what we see in contemporary visual culture, if not in real life as well. At least I do see them in my fitness, in my gym. So there is this whole idea that contemporary beauty ideals, again, both for men and women. If you look at older films, look at an old James Bond, old Batman, it is so camp because there he is in a little purple suit with a floppy stomach. Now this idea that Batman or James Bond could have, you know, a hairy chest and a floppy belly, that is just no way, right? So Batman now has to wear this suit where all the muscles are completely stressed. So the fit body has to be a hairless body because otherwise there's no point showing how well you built your muscles. Now this is my bridge to the next discourse, which is science fiction and the notion of the cyborg. It comes from Donna Haraway. I will not go in too much. And the idea is that the cyborg is a modern man-machine in the sense that it's not the robotics of a century ago, but it is the man-machine that melts together with the computer, actually. And in my book, I've made great efforts to look for attractive images of the cyborg and also of feminine images, because you know, there's always the idea that the cyborg is really the Terminator, and of course I think in the Terminator you see very clearly how Schwarzenegger was a bodybuilder and then became a cyborg. Well, that's very 80s, literally, right? So in the 80s, the cyborgs were bodybuilders, but 20 years later, the cyborgs melt with the computer, so you don't need the muscle anymore. But, as you will see here, you get an image of androgyny, right? So this is a man and a woman. They grow really close together. And although that also happened, of course, in the Terminator, because in the third Terminator film, there's also a Terminator woman. And so androgynous, but also the hairlessness is very much, the hairless body is very much accentuated by digital technology. And that is very much part of the science fiction of the yeah, late 90s, early 2000, where there is a perfectibility of the body, but it doesn't have, it's not connoted necessarily with strength, but it is connected with smoothness, with the shiny image, yeah, of that face, where even for men, the face becomes almost doll-like. And again, there was, of course, the example of Lara Croft. I will skip that a bit. She was technically actually not a cyborg, but a real woman. She's very strong. No, I mean, she can, it's very funny. She fights with machines and she wins, you know. Okay, well, they also exist in real life. I mean, my whole point is, of course, that there is a blurring between fact and fiction. Obviously, you know, I do not want to become like the Terminator, but I do want to become a bit like the cover of my book, like which is Misha Klein. So there is that element that we identify with the cyborg as the perfectible body. This is Amy Mullins. Oh, I forgot to translate it. Well, it's an athlete, as you can probably guess. She was not born. Her legs were amputated because of medical reasons, and she got these panther kinds of. She was the first. You see them more now, and she was a Paralympics champion, but she was also a model. Here she has a prosthesis of wood. For Alexander McQueen, I think, in a beautiful series. And here she's a model where she really looks a bit like Barbie, doesn't she? Because the legs are unnaturally long. I mean, you probably know that Barbie has an impossible body. The point here again that we are more and more identifying with this body-man-machine idea, and the idea that even although you're handicapped, you actually enhance the body through technology. And hence, we're no longer afraid of technology, but we embrace it and bring it into our world. Well, these are probably, in this kind of artist school, you would probably know these early work by Ines van Lamsweerde, Pam and Britt. There are 4 women in total. And what I find interesting, I think you see it a bit clearer here, is that the body is clearly hairless. It was very early computer work. One of the first to use the paint box to make. She closed the openings of the body. She made it completely hairless but shiny. And at the same time, if you see them in real life, you don't see them very well in these pictures. The veins in the hands are quite swollen. So you see a very interesting mix of the human and the non-human. And at the same time, I also think that you'll see in the work of, in the 90s by these kinds of artists that they really try to comment on these new beauty ideals that make, in this case, still women, but I will get to the men, that will really make these bodies very, cyborg-like, and that integration of that cyborg into the beauty ideal. So whether it's a robot or a mannequin, and you know, I think a lot of top models look like that actually. Some examples of ads that you see all around, you know, of that kind of plastic look. And I must say that digital technology did a lot in photoshopping skins. I think if you look at contemporary models, there is a renaissance almost of older, like 40, you know, models. But they are so photoshopped, you know, like Madonna is my age, but I mean, she is now both completely cosmetically recombined, and you know, it's so photoshopped, and it's very frustrating to see images of women of your age without, you know, wrinkles. Okay, the hair I can take care of, the rest not really. So this is Madonna when she was not a blonde, actually. And with a lot of pubic hair. Now, okay, hair. You probably have seen this photo before because it's one of the most well-known bloopers. It's been published time and time and time again as an example of a faux pas of this film star because she forgot to shave her armpits. And I think that's quite interesting that at the moment that these things become a taboo, you know, people are criticized for it, but here you can also see that actresses, for example, here start to play around with it. And I saw that Anouk also was playing around with armpit hair in her pictures. But only rebels can do that. You know, normal people don't dare that anymore. So, men is a sad story because they have so much hair. And, you know, I've seen a documentary about removal hair. You know, you really feel sorry for them because there's such large parts of the body and, man, But okay, the result is nice. And so I skipped the empirical part, which is there's a lot of empirical studies. They're a bit boring. They count and then they say what I already knew, and that is, you know, it starts, if you want to know, it starts around the First World War. And why? Because the skirts get shorter, right? When you're completely covered, I mean, we think only Muslim women are completely covered, but a century ago, of course, we all were completely covered. So in the Victorian age, you didn't have to shave anything because nothing was seen. And then the dresses became slightly shorter. Remember all the excitement about seeing an ankle. So they started shaving their legs. And then naked arms was the next big step. So they started shaving their armpits. And then around the World War is a shift. America moves faster in the hairless body. Europe is quite behind. And then gradually it spreads over the body. And in the 80s, it's about 80% of women shaving parts of their body. And in 2000, it's 98%. And I think 60% shaves everything. And for men, it's also increasing. So it's going very fast, and it's very recent, as you can see in the picture of Madonna, right? It's not that. So men also start shaving. You know, at one point you forget that men actually do have hairy chests, and because you never see it anymore. I think this is also an interesting picture, playing around with it, and with again that androgynous kind of image. And why did I include that? Well, there is always a little anecdote to that. Yeah, I thought that, again, the fascination for body hair. Daniela Kwijtaal has developed wallpaper in the Bali, in the cultural center of the Bali. But next time you're in the Bali, go upstairs and there's wallpaper. And it just looks like pink with a pattern. But it's actually a close-up of this part of the body of her lover. Yeah, so if you look up close, it's skin with hair, and that is wallpaper all over the walls. It's really interesting. Okay, so the eroticization of men happens in visual culture, starts in the early 90s. We get the metrosexual, and then all the other Uber and retro and whatever sexuals, but basically, they can't go back to the image that I showed in the beginning, right? All men also have to perfect their body, have to work on their body, have to be beautiful. And I think, for me, the turning point was Daniel Craig in Casino Royale, because here this is literally based on the image of Ursula Andress in one of the early James Bond films, and later taken a look at the phallic knife, and here again, and Halle Berry, right? So they come out of the sea, it's an iconic image, and so does he. I mean, I really had to laugh. It was so funny, it's so feminized, it's so eroticized. And in the movie, he's always wet. No, he's always wet. He's either pours champagne over himself, he's in the shower, he drowns in the canal, he cries, he actually cries. You know, but as you can see, he doesn't lose any of the strength of his phallic, yeah, whatever, I've lost my language there. You know, I think that is very interesting, that this is a true metrosexual, like David Beckham. There's spoofs on this, of course, you can well imagine, you know, where the body is literally the reclining nude position of art history. The legs are wide open, which is not usually how men are photographed. So it's really a feminine position, shiny, hairless body, a bit of enhancement, I think, some parts of the body. And then that stare into the camera that is very masculine, and the stubble on his chin. When I was in Milan, I saw this image, and if you look at the bottom, those are cars, so you see how, I mean, it was literally as big as this whole thing behind me, hanging there. And again, very much, as you can see, I mean, this is not a natural body. These are perfected, made bodies that, again, are hairless. It's turning out a little bit a-theoretical. Okay, well, I will get to it. Yeah, 15 minutes. Okay, so body hair, sociologically functions as a taboo. And I think, you know, you really make a statement as a woman if you go out with hairy legs, right? I mean, hardly anybody does it anymore. You really make a statement if you do that. So sociologically, as you can see in the pictures of stars, you're no longer supposed to have body hair, and at least not show it. Psychologically, it functions as the abject, and the abject is a term that comes from Kristeva, well, it doesn't come from her, but she uses it, from Julia Kristeva. And the idea of the abject is that it's something that you find so disgusting that you abject it literally from the body, that you don't want it in the body. So it's usually disgusting things like pus and body fluids are usually disgusting and abject. And this was also supported by empirical research that people had to tick, you know, how disgusting do you find maggots in meat or body hair on women? And surprisingly, I mean, I do find this rather shocking, that body hair on women had the same level of disgust as maggots in meat. Yeah? I mean, that really means that we are disgusted by body hair. Now, this is interesting if you think about it, because it is, you know, completely natural. We all have body hair. I mean, it's very rare not to have body hair. Actually, you're ill if you don't have body hair, right? It's unhealthy. So it's very interesting that it has become not only sociologically a taboo, but psychologically it really disturbs us. And that is a bit my point. That is how far we have moved away from nature. And I've written about it in other articles also, that I really, yeah, okay, there may be a few people who want to go back to nature, but frankly, I really think that is over. We are beyond. We are beyond. I don't mind that. I mean, it's not that I'm an optimist. Okay. So, I've lost a bit track, but I was going through all the discourses, and I think I've done the sports, the fitness, etc. And this is a chaste picture of a photo exhibition of people who have an illness and do not have hair, because I didn't want to show pornography. But the interesting part is, of course, that we also shave the most intimate part of our bodies, our pubic hair, and that is also apparently going on a lot. And it's mentioned in the vagina monologues, it's mentioned in Sex and the City, it's mentioned even in The Sopranos. One of the guys comes back from prison and he said, my God, what is really, the only thing that's really new is that women now shave their, what does he say again? Well, bushes. They shave their bushes now. So and we're talking about 2000, 2004, that this becomes part of television programs. We get pubic hair fashion. You may remember the Gucci shaving and the pubic hair, the branding. And this is quite interesting, because if you look at art history, the representation of nudity was always without pubic hair, because that would be too to pornographic, actually. So you see that in art history, usually there is either the fig leaf or a hand, or, you know, Venus, Botticelli has her head hair in front. So it would always be covered, or it would be just a bit of blank white flesh, but it would never, you would never show pubic hair. And then in modernism, think of Modigliani and painters like that, they start painting pubic hair, and it is considered a huge shock, and it's considered pornography. So in 1 century, we've moved from showing pubic hair as part of being pornography, showing the real thing. That is really one of the shocks if you look at porn in the 80s, or think of that picture of Madonna, that actually people have hair, both men and women, and that now it's shaved. And I think that has to do with a certain kind of objectification of the body. That is, it has, you know, I don't mean that we're looking at body objects in the 70s kind of feminist sense, but much deeper, that we are so used. You remember that Boris Groys this afternoon said that we live in the gaze of the other. I would advance that argument. We not only live in the gaze of the other, we live in the gaze of the media. We're always aware that we can be photographed and filmed, and that's what we do all the time. I mean, I see that, right? You experience something and you film and photograph it. So we live in the eyes of I would say in the lens of the camera rather than the eyes of the other. And in that lens of the camera is also our own self-image. I think that is where you can advance the argument of Lacan, you know, the mirror stage, 1 step further. So hairlessness of the sex, in pornography, it has the function of showing it's really there and showing everything, right? You show everything, because actually otherwise you wouldn't see very much. I mean, for Freud, the big shock of the female body, I mean, I think he never got over it, was that there was nothing to see. He describes it in Medusa's head. He describes the shock of the terror of nothing to see, i.e. his idea that women were castrated. Now, obviously, women are not castrated, and it took us a century to catch up, and now in shaving, you know, you clearly see everything, right? You see things that I always find it a bit disturbing on the beach, and, you know, I think, oh, well, do I really want to see this? But okay, there it is. So there is something about visibility and invisibility that I think is very complicated in our culture, that we can only believe something is really there when we see it. So it's about the visibility, and it goes literally into the crafts and the crevices of our own body that we have to expose. Like we expose the echography of our fetuses, right? That's how our albums start these days. My first photo, and it is, you know, you in your mother's womb. So there is absolutely that fascination of opening the body up to the gaze of, I would say, not the other, but of the camera, and that we are aware of that. And I'm not making this up. A lot of stars play with that, right? They come out of in very short dresses. Britney Spears did it, and somebody else, and then they have a naked sex, you know, hairless, and no underwear, and you see it, and it's published in the papers. So there is absolutely that fascination of wanting to show and wanting to see. A frenzy of the visible, Lydia Williams calls it. And for me, that's part of putting the body as something that is always on display, always ready to be photographed, ready for sex whenever and wherever. So, and that I think is also not only happening to the female body, but also to the male body, as I think I've shown a little bit. Okay. Yeah, so these are the discourses that I've rather briefly, but if you want to read it more carefully, you can download it or buy my book, even better. It's very cheap. It's an e-book. It's only €8. And now I want to end by, I want to end by going into Deleuze and Guattari, and why I think that is a more helpful category of understanding what's happening to our bodies, or what we are doing to it, how we are perfecting and making, you know, in our extreme makeover, making over the body, that it is, I think, more helpful than the biopolitics or the technologies and the self-fashioning of Foucault. So I've tried to show that then all these discourses and genres and media and daily practices of body care, that hairlessness is a new beauty ideal, and that the hairy body has become a taboo, and that body hair has become the abject. So I would say that in that, I skipped a bit, the effects of pornography are, of course, sorry, because that's very important, are, of course, that we take away the signs of adult sexuality, right? Because body hair is, you get it in puberty, it's part of biological sexual adulthood. So we take that away. So that's why I say that in the hairy body, it becomes feminine. It's a becoming woman of men. It's a becoming child of both men and women. And it's a becoming machine of both men and women in that shiny, also photoshopped skin. So now that reasserts the boundary firmly between the human and the animal, right? We do not want to become like the ape from which we once, millions of years ago, came. So hairlessness, so that's one boundary that is sharply drawn, but hairlessness brings the other boundaries together, or crosses the boundary, let me put it that way, makes it porous. So men and women are closer together in their visual image, and I think that's absolutely happening in the last decades. So that suggests that the boundaries between masculinity and femininity are less sharply drawn than before, and are creating new ideals of neo-androgyny. The hairless body also makes boundaries between the adults and children more porous, and I think that is indicating a desire for eternal youthfulness. And perhaps, do I dare to say it, a fear of adult sexuality. I sometimes think we're so over, I mean, this is again a little sidestep, I've not worked this out anywhere, but I sometimes think that we are so completely fascinated with sex, and I sometimes wonder whether we do it actually, you know, whether there isn't a fear of adult sexuality, but, well, come back in 5 years and maybe have written about it. And the hairless body then also blurs the boundary between man and machine, and that's the book I've just written, The Cyborg, on the cyborg and the identification with the cyborg. And the hairless skin is something that's plastic, that is metallic, that is photoshopped, and reinforces the visualization of our bodies as something artificial. Now, I've called this a process of becoming. And Deleuze and Guattari, it's in 1,000 Plateaus, their big fat book. They say, okay, becoming is a non-linear, it's a dynamic procedure of change. Groys again talked about Deleuze and Derrida calling for change. For them, it's a radical thing. They say we have to become other. You have to become something you're not yet. You're always in the process of becoming something else. And they really, they're a bit wacko. So they say you have to become machine. You have to become insect. You have to become animal. You have to, you know, really do that. And of course, art does that. Art does that. I mean, films do that. Becoming other is what they say, it's a deterritorialization of the body, and it undoes a fixed sense of ourselves. Now, so far I've used this as a descriptive tool, but the question is the hairless body now indeed pointing to a creative process, to a transformative process? Because that is how Deleuze and Guattari see becoming. Now, if you look at it materially, physically, the hairless body is an unnatural state. You have to work on it time and time again, right? It's a daily, a weekly, a monthly practice. So in that sense, it is a process that I think is indexed on a consumption of eroticized bodies that are completely immersed in an economy of profit. So negatively, in a negative evaluation of the becoming hairless, The hairless body is a territorialization, where the body gets territorialized in very much the sense of Foucault's disciplining. You know the term discipline that Foucault writes about, disciplining the body, creating the docile body that sits still while somebody is talking, right? Or that goes home and shaves the legs. So, and that is part of advanced capitalism. However, it can also be argued that the hairless body deterritorializes the boundaries because, as I said, it is a becoming feminine, it is a becoming woman, a becoming child, a becoming machine. So I do not want to claim that each and every becoming in itself is a creative or a rhizomatic or a dynamic process towards multiplicity. That is the words that Deleuze and Guattari would use. But I do also think that the hairless body does shift classical dualisms and causes a body to be in between. And that is a word, again, that Deleuze and Guattari use it a lot, to be in between man and woman, in between adult and child, in between man and machine, in between nature and culture. And in that sense, I think that is a more positive evaluation of the becoming hairless, opening the body up to a realm of flows, of forces, of certain multiplicities. So, I see hands waving. I'm done. So these were the boundaries. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I will. My next point was: will it actually end up in also bald heads? That is so far mostly a men thing. Anyway, so the flows, the forces. I'm ready. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, but I was... Oh, okay, you were hot. Okay. But I am actually finished. I'm sorry. So anyway, so the flows, the forces, the multiplicities of this idea of becoming is, I think, a potent notion. I do think that the achievement of hairlessness is a kind of extreme makeover that moves the body away from nature in the direction of culture and of the artificial, in the direction of control, perfection, and manipulation. So by disciplining and controlling the materiality, the hairiness of our flesh, we may open up to the process of a becoming whatever, machine mostly. And I do think it may point to a desired fusion with technology, where we respond to the appeal of the inorganic. So at this point in Western culture, humans turn away from nature with a touch of disgust. We don't want to be a naked ape. That was a very famous title in the 60s, I think, The Naked Ape. So, because you're a bit younger, I thought I should explain it. So we don't want to be a naked ape. In fact, we don't even want to be a hairless ape because we prefer to become a hairless machine. Thank you.